So I am Amanda Farough. I am the editor-in-chief at GameDaily.biz. You might notice that there is the Game Daily in the GameDaily Connect, so I run the website and all of the editorial. And I am going to let my illustrious panelists introduce themselves, but we're going to do it in a very specific way. So I want to go through a brief history of your companies, and it's really interesting because you guys actually, I think, sat down mostly in the right order. Yeah, we kind of did it. It's cool. You guys are on it. So Gerald, let's start with Tankee. Talk to me about Tankee. Talk to me about how things come together with that, your origin story. Launch into it, but you have 1 minute.
Okay, so hi, Gerald with Tankee. So origin story really quick. I'm a dad of a 10-year-old, and we started Tankee to solve my own problem because I'm very into myself. So, so a few years ago, being in the industry and seeing how gaming had impacted my life at home, with me really connecting with my son through gaming, and then seeing that his celebrities were influencers versus the sports figures and movie stars when I was growing up, I wanted to watch it and experience it with him, and I quickly realized that all the good content for kids is next to all the bad stuff on YouTube and on Twitch and on other platforms, and so I was like, oh, there must be a Nickelodeon for influencer content, and I couldn't find it, so we built Tankee. So we're a family-friendly platform that offers streaming content, works directly with influencers and with brands to bring that content to kids and give parents a chance to do laundry and other stuff as opposed to hovering around the devices in their home. So that's Tankee.
I really appreciate Tankee because I also look forward to not having to hover around my children. Also, YouTube is banned in my house, and so is Twitch. So for now, my kids are very young.
Download Tankee.
Yeah, Tankee. Not an ad. Okay. Scott, I want to ask you your question next. I want to know about StreamElements and what you want developers and brands to know about your platform and the company's mission.
I would be delighted to tell you. That's why I came
I'm here. I'm listening.
Thank you. I hope these folks want to hear that as well, because they're going to. So StreamElements started about 3 years ago as a core platform to help live stream content creators create their content. Most people that you will see on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook Gaming, what you see on screen is obviously themselves broadcasting and sharing, but you probably see graphics, and there's the whole chat bot, there's alerts, there's loyalty stores, there's merchandising. All those things are handled by third parties. One of them happens to be StreamElements, clearly the best one. And the last couple of years, we've seen wild growth of people using our tools and platform. I was brought in to help take everything that we've done and now apply that to help brand marketers connect with the audiences that are watching all of these influencers and streamers, to bring some technology into what has otherwise really been about kind of relationships and service and middlemen of trying to connect brands with influencers. We're leveraging the tools and tech and platform that we provided for streamers to now help provide more scale, more measurement, more consistency, and let brands do what they can do in partnering with influencers. Is there anything else you wanted to know?
No, I think that covers it. That was really good.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Yes.
All right. Nailed it. All right, that just leaves Dan. Dan's got a different perspective because he works with influencers from the other side of the table. So what I would like to know is about HyperX's approach to working with influencers and how that's grown over, especially over the last 5 years.
Sure. So HyperX is I guess you could call us an endemic sponsor to the esports and to the gaming space. We make gaming headsets, gaming keyboards, gaming mice, and a lot of other gaming products that basically, much like the basketball that LeBron needs, it's a product that these professional gamers need, but obviously we're making most of our business by selling it to more casual gamers. So HyperX really, I guess, has been around for about 15 years and as a brand, but it has been in the last 5 to 6 years that we have added influencer marketing as a key pillar for our overall marketing strategy. So we want to be absolutely into the esports and gaming world, and that includes sponsoring teams and tournaments and so on, but the influencers, the streamers, the celebrities, the YouTube content creators, the athletes, those have been one of the biggest, I'd say, catalysts for us as a brand to get a lot more wide brand recognition And the great thing about all of this, especially with platforms and so on, is that there's a very measurable effect to a lot of what you do from an influencer marketing perspective. We do have some big names like Joel Embiid of the 76ers and Post Malone, who's a big musician. But we also have very up-and-coming influencers, and those up-and-comers, and even like maybe a tier 1 or tier 2, the actions that they do, the brand extensions that they carry, is very measurable, which is a great tool from a marketing perspective, because you can actually point to the effect of what they're actually helping you to find and convert customers. So very new world, but it's dynamic and it's exciting. And if you're a brand, you better be paying attention, because this is a very key place to find customers and convert them and be loyal to this.
Yeah, that's great. Good job, guys. Feel good about this. All right, so I'm sure everybody here knows that influencer marketing has seen an incredible uptick over the last 5 years, right? And I'm curious to know what you all think about how streaming has affected influencer marketing. So we can start anywhere. If you guys have anything that's like pop into your mind, just pop in.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and honestly, the whole medium of live streaming is really fascinating. You get to combine the best of sort of program real-time television, the best of digital. I think about the engagement and the nature. You're not just sitting there watching, but you're actually, as a community, talking with each other, talking with the streamer directly. And the amount of time that you are on, especially you think about, an influencer on Instagram, for example, you post a picture. Okay, you posted a picture, it's a static thing. I look at it for a couple seconds, that's kind of it. The idea that the streamer is on for hours and hours, and I have the opportunity to connect to and relate to this human being for such a long period of time, there's just no other way to do it. The VOD influencers on YouTube, again, you can watch a lot of content, but there's no real-time engagement or sense of, hey, this is happening. I'm a part of the experience.
Right.
It's all sort of after the fact. And so when you apply advertising to that notion that in real time you can get feedback, or you can really understand how people are reacting to what you're doing, and that the value for the dollar when you're talking about something that's, say, on screen as a sponsorship for, say 4 hours in a stream, different than, say, a 15-second pre-roll or, a single post on Twitter or Instagram. Just, it's a massive amount of opportunity and value that's being created with this new medium.
And yeah, just to continue that conversation, from a marketing perspective, it is about as good as it gets, because you are engaged for hours on end potentially. And I think it's very, I guess, equatable to live sports, and why live sports has always been such a very popular form of entertainment, is because you're collectively watching something together. You go to the stadium and you're experiencing it together. This is just in a much different way, where it's primarily digital. There's still the community aspect to it, to where there's the chat going, and then there's the engagement, as he mentioned. And as a brand, again, there's just so many ways that you can get your brand, your product, your service in front of these customers, in front of these fans, essentially, of these stars that are these influencers, and just new ways that were never really possible before. So again, it's a whole new dynamic landscape, and the great thing is that there's challengers to Twitch like Mixer coming in, and there's all of these things that are, again, making it even more dynamic and even more flexible for a brand to start somewhere, learn, and then expand their marketing strategy from there.
That's great.
Yeah, and I would add that it's generational. We're dealing with an on-demand generation that now has screens with them all the time, ever present. So it's the way that they want to engage, not just with their brand, but with the rest of that community. And so in working with influencers in a streaming environment, it's dynamic, but it's also the language of the next generation. So it's not necessarily that something needs to be scheduled. It needs to be an organic part of their day, and they're fleeing traditional media in droves, so it's really hard to connect to that group. And so being part of an influencer's community and having their message and your message align really allows you to have a quality engagement. So one of the things that's really important is the conversion rate versus the number of people watching is much higher in a, whether it's live stream or on demand, in that environment. And you just get so much more quality time, I think, to tell your message as part of their community.
That's great. Those are fantastic answers. Let's keep that ball rolling. I want to hear from each of you again. like one trend that you guys are starting to see pop up in terms of influencer marketing and what is important to influencers and what is important to brands and platforms. So I'm going to start, Gerald, I want you to start. So what are you seeing as like the trend that you're keeping your eye on for Tankee?
I think experience enhancement. So like if your brand can actually bring an experience to that influencer's community, and you can actually enable them to kind of go on a journey, whether it's sponsored by the brand, whether it's with your product, then it's a much more organic way to be present for that community, and it drives a different level of loyalty. So I think anything you can do to actually just bolster or add an experience or let them explore something that they've kind of wanted to do as a community, and you can enable that as a brand, you can really generate some lifelong fans through that trend.
That's great.
And to continue on that is, I see it also just, it's the community aspect of watching something live.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something where, you know, it's funny, in our house we all want to watch the premiere of a certain show at the same time, so that we're watching it at the same time as everybody else. I know it's probably weird. Maybe it's just us.
It's not weird. I think everybody does
but
that.
I think I read yesterday, and I've heard it before, that even Twitch is trying to convert their platform to also be a primary place to watch traditional sports, so basketball games and football and so on, because you get obviously digital, you get, you know, extension anywhere immediately, but there's also that community aspect to it, where there's that, you know, in many cases a one-to-many, but in, you know, the community kind of taking over part of the conversation brings a whole nother, I guess, way to enjoy that live entertainment. And from a brand's perspective, I think it can be very overwhelming, right? Do I do YouTube? Do I do Twitch? Do I do Mixer? Do I do them all? And that's why I'd say one of the best trends for a marketing, from a marketing perspective, are tools like platforms that allow a marketer to measure, to find, to work with influencers in a way that allows you to manage the chaos. Because I've always been a big fan of set your strategy, start simple. Who are you trying to attract? Because you're going to find a certain type of customer is going to be on Twitch versus a certain type that's going to go more VOD and YouTube and so on. So find out, obviously, you know, that's the basics of who, you know, what's your product, service, who are you trying to, you know, present it to in terms of a customer base. But you can try your hand at all of these platforms through these tools that make it incredibly easy, because there's up and coming aspiring gamers. People are seeing, you know, $3 million won at Fortnite, and, you know, people are just making all of this money being streamers. So there's I think the wrong assumption that it's easy. But the good thing is that there's always going to be that next up and coming influencer or streamer that you can work with as a brand, and you need those tools to help you find it, because there's thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. So I'd say the best trend for a marketing individual would be leverage these tools, because it's going to allow you to communicate, to recruit, and then ultimately, you know, win that, you know, competitive battle of, you know, your product or your service, getting the brand extension and the affinity that it needs out there.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that, because you also asked, you know, a question like, what do the influencers need and want out of this? And just to pick off on that, influencers need tools too, right? Like they want to do a good job for you as a brand. They want to put your logo in the right place at the right time. They want to be able to support you correctly with their community. As Dan said, it's not easy what they do. I think there's an impression, just sitting around playing video games with a camera on. I can assure you it is not. And it is much more than that. And you know, most streamers, especially once you start getting a real following, you kind of think of it as they want to be the next Oprah, the next Howard Stern. Like they're trying to become a media entity in and of themselves, a person, a business, a structure, and that requires talent agents and managers, and it requires technology and tools. And so they very, very much want to be more sophisticated, and it's helpful when they have the ability to serve you correctly. And so this kind of notion of standardization, in a sense, that you can say, okay, there's going to be 20 influencers that you're going to work with. There's going to be one graphic that is deployed centrally by one person. The streamers don't have to worry about it. All they need to do is sort of opt in and say, yes, it's okay to put this graphic here, and get help from a third party to help them actually activate.
Yeah.
This is one of the trends that we're seeing. It's a more formal, structured, centralized approach. And of course, I'm biased representing technology in the game, but this happens in every sector of advertising always, that you find ways to make it more efficient, more automated, then it becomes more scalable, then more streamers are able to participate in campaigns because you make it easier for a brand to say work with 50 streamers, where otherwise, as Dan said, managing the chaos is just too much. I'm only going to work with 10, and then those other 40 never even get a chance at it. So all of this feeds the industry to be bigger and more diverse and more scalable, and I think that's an important trend for all of us. I also wanted to add what you were saying, which is sort of like the win-win-win of, the community wins, the streamer wins, the brand wins. This stuff is really valuable. Most brands, even those who are doing influencer marketing, are still thinking in the context of sort of their own voice and what's in it for me. Sure, I'm going to pay this influencer. Yeah, it needs to be authentic. But at the end of the day, how many views am I going to get? And how many sales am I going to get? It's very me-centric. What we're seeing in this space is a greater understanding of community and support and participation. You take an example like a CPG or a QSR, like a Burger King, for example. Burger King can sponsor a streamer and a stream, and the streamer wins because he or she gets some money from Burger King and maybe lifetime of free burgers. The audience wins because they're going to do some kind of challenge, and if the streamer wins the challenge, it's going to unlock a $1 coupon for everybody at Burger King. Burger King wins because they've now got all these people who are really invested and motivated to see the streamer succeed, because they all want to get the $1 off, their burger, and you've created this happy win-win environment that supports the entire ecosystem. And so trying to drive for more of these kinds of things and teach brands to be in it, not sort of outside of it and slapping their logo on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump in though, because I think, because I cater to kids, like 6 to 12-year-olds, they're very much about on demand. So like live streaming is incredibly powerful, but I'm telling you, kids expect that the content works around their schedule a lot of the time. So I would keep in mind other things, even non-video things, other social platforms beyond live streaming as part of that mix with the influencers, because being omni-channel and having different types of assets, I think just reinforces the brand as well.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point, because I too have a 10-year-old son. We should hook them up and let him play something fun. But I don't let him go on Twitch just because there's the unknown of live TV or live digital. And he is all about VOD, right? It's, I want to watch video on Rocket League. I want to watch right now, and he'll go to the next one, and so on. So again, as a marketer, we do sell headsets to 10-year-olds, and we sell them to 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. So again, it's tailoring your strategy and then picking the platform. And then sometimes you do find that win-win where you can get the same level of exposure just on different platforms and in different means. But again, these platforms, these tools, and all of this is just making a marketer's job easier, because it can get overwhelming with the just sheer volume of what's going on out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Something that I've been curious about, Gerald, is what special considerations do you need to give when connecting Tanky and such with brands for ad activations or partnerships, given the intended audience? Like, that's got to be walking through a minefield.
I don't look at it like that, actually. I think it's a real opportunity to engage, a younger audience in the right way. I think the regulations are a good thing. So regulations around privacy, like COPPA compliance, GDPR, as a parent, that's the right thing to do. So we are very selective in terms of the types of brands that we work with, the types of activation, because I think just blindly automating advertisements that hit kids is not a good idea. So
not YouTube is what we're saying.
No, not YouTube.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, we got to be bold and take a stand.
Well,
we're parents.
It's interesting because I've had questions like, oh my gosh, in the kid space, it's so difficult. I'm like, no, this is the future of civilization. You should be held to a higher standard.
Absolutely.
So I'm totally fine with that. But it also doesn't mean that you can't do things. Like if you think about the big purchasing periods in retail cycles, back to school, holiday, they're driven by kids. So it's not a problem. I think it's an opportunity to do things the right way.
That's great. I love that. So we are not going to get through all of our questions. I had so many questions prepared. So the next question that I want to ask is for Scott.
Yes.
That's so great.
all
I
you
love that
dating
Scott
game.
loves
You're gonna
talking
crush
to me.
this question.
I love that Scott loves talking to me. It's great. So I'm curious, what are the key metrics that a brand tends to pay the most attention to when they're looking to work with a prominent streamer or influencer on your platform?
Typically these days it's views, right? You want to see how many people saw what you're calling, say, a sponsored stream. There's different terminologies like average concurrent views, right? So at any given moment, there's maybe 5,000 people watching, but obviously those people are coming and going. So over the course of a 4 or 5 hour stream, maybe there's 20,000 actual unique people that watch that content. And at any given moment, there's like 5,000 at a time that are watching. So these are some of the numbers that people care about. One of the things that we are doing because of the tech side and the ability to deploy things into the stream, if you have a brand logo, for example, we know when that logo goes up, and let's say it's up for 20 minutes, then when it comes down, we know how many people have seen that for that 20-minute section, and we'll call those impressions, more like traditional digital media. So we're starting to add that language of digital media into it. Another thing that people are really looking for, particularly in the streaming platforms where there's chat, there's something called the chat command, right? So your HyperX, or you put exclamation point, maybe as the name of the headphone that you're promoting, and then someone types that in chat. Our chatbot responds with the link so that you can go learn more or buy that product, right? So people want to know, well, how many times did that happen? Who typed it in? How many people clicked on it? So some of the things that are more standardized digital media metrics are now creeping their way into it to get beyond simply views. But those are the main things that people are asking for.
That's great. So Dan, can you walk us through the very broad strokes of what putting together a marketing campaign, an influencer marketing campaign looks like? Like how much lead time do you generally need?
It's going to vary. Like our product launches, which we have 20, 30 products launching a year, which is quite a lot of volume. Those take months and months of planning and preparation. And then there's the opportunistic kind of newsjacking element of our marketing organization, where if something's about to happen or it's near term, you have to be nimble, you have to be agile, right? Because you never know at the end of the day what's truly going to resonate with the marketing campaign. So you could spend 10 months planning it and then it kind of hits with a thud, right? But if you can be opportunistic and you say, oh well, this is trending, this is happening, and then you can rally around that and get a piece of content created or the right social post and those types of things. Yeah. So it's a balance. I mean, some of it takes again months, if not years, to plan something the right way. But in this age of just so much communication and so many social channels and so much entertainment, you have to also be very agile and nimble and be able to take advantage of things and be quick on your feet.
That's great.
Are we allowed to ask cross questions?
I think you should do it. I mean,
because I was just curious, when you think about big ideas, for example, they come from random places, often sometimes salespeople, and you don't plan for those things, right? Do you generally build in a sense of like, hey, anything can happen, and sort of part of that flexibility, right, of like newsjacking when like a big idea comes around? Are you even able to make it work?
We are. I mean, not to everything, right? There's ideas that are great coming from all parts of the organization. So there is that balance of, you have this whole host of things that you're just up against deadlines. You're trying to go, okay, I got to get this in by this time. Right? That's half of it. The other half of it is marketing is kind of a playground, right? And it is what you make it, right? You can read all the books and the fundamentals and all of that, but at the end of the day, you have to be creative. And if you're just shutting down on ideas just because here's my set of things that I know we have to do, then you're missing the big point, because it's those leaps that you take, it's those risks that you take where you're trying to be opportunistic that could lead to something great. Like we did we happened to pull a Jenga game in the middle of an annual stream that we do where we take Street Fighters and match them up against Super Smash. We just happened to have Jenga. We put it out there, they did it, and now it's an annual thing, and people anticipate and cannot wait for these esport professionals to play this game of Jenga. And so it's just those things. And it just happened again. It actually ended in a tie. I've never seen Jenga end in a tie. There was not literally one block to pull. And so it's those types of things where, again, marketing is just, I love it, but half of it is very planned and structured and so on. The other half is, it should be the more fun, creative side of it. And you have to be, willing to be open to those ideas and rally around them as best you can.
It's especially in influencer world when you have the creators themselves maybe coming up with ideas or things that are outside the typical marketing playbook. Usually you can do that in the sort of custom content category more so than in regular spots and dots media buying. So it's refreshing to hear.
That's great. Well, I had like a bajillion other questions, but we're actually out of time. So I can't even ask them, but maybe I'll ask them over email and put them in a story. You never know.
Well, I think
write
we should
stuff.
collect the email address from every single one of people here so that
That's
they
fine.
can get
You guys
the
want to be
answers.
on my mailing
That's
list?
very
We can do
digital of you
this.
Yeah.
to only
Just come
include the
find
people in
me.
the room.
All right.
Well, these are the
thank
people
you.
that care the most.
A big thank you to the panelists today. You guys were brilliant. Thank you for
Thank you.
attending.
Thanks for being here.